So in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that's a bit controversial. I'm going to be talking about paying for your own ATP-CTP course and your own type rating to help you be more competitive when you're applying to the airlines or any other job. So, hey, I'm Dr. Andy Moltar. I'm a flight instructor, a CFI IIMEI. I used to be a corporate pilot, and now I'm a professor of aviation. And so, yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of y'all that don't agree with me on this one. And, but hey, hear me out first. Watch this video to the end. And then if you want to throw some shade in the comments, be my guest. So, I know the idea of paying for your own type rating, paying for your own ATP CTP course, is something that a lot of people don't want to do. And you've been told not to do it. But I really believe in today's current hiring market that it'll really help you stand out, and it might be the bump that gets you the job over someone else that's not willing to do it. So first, I'm going to give you a little bit of history on how it used to be, paying for your own type ratings and so on. And then I'll tell you about how it makes you more competitive. And then I'll actually show you some companies that you can do an ATP CTP course and a type rating bundle while at the same time getting your airline transport pilot certificate. So when I first started my flight training, it was crazy. I mean, you truly start your flight training with the faith that one day you'll get to be you'll be paid to fly. And so, I knew when I was going in, I started my flight training in 2006, and it was you're going to flight instruct for 2 to 3 thousand hours before you could get the crappiest pilot job, flying checks in the horrible aircraft, not really making a livable wage. And then once you built up enough of that multi time, then maybe someone would hire you to be a corporate pilot. And then once you got enough jet time, then maybe, you could be hired to fly for a regional airline, maybe. So, it was truly you did this out of love for flying and on just faith that one day you might actually get hired and make the big bucks. It was even so bad that there were companies out there that, you actually had to pay them to go work for them to fly their aircraft. Now you'd be like, why would you do that? Well, I mean, it was building that multi-time at a reduced cost. So you were kind of subsidizing that company to fly their cargo, their checks, whatever it was. And so you'd actually pay to work for them, but you also got to get more hours in your logbook. Um, if you wanted to work for Southwest, you could not get interviewed unless you already had a 737 type rating. So people who actually met their hiring minimums would go out, pay for their own 737 type rating just on the hope that they would get interviewed for Southwest Airlines. Well, then around, I want to say like 2012, the 1,500 hour rule came out, and well, it was maybe around there. I'm not too sure, but the 1,500 hour rule came out, and it changed everything. That and the retirements of all the Vietnam era pilots. It was such a change in the industry. It really became, if you had the flight time and a pulse, you were going to get hired. They were going to pay for your ATP CTP course. They're going to pay for you to get a type rating, and you get your airline transport pilot certificate. And so, I mean, it was heaven. For everybody that had been in the industry, it finally changed into the pilot's favor, not the airline's favor. And so, I mean, people are just getting picked up left and right. You submit an application on day one, guess you were going to get a call back for an interview that same day. It was that competitive for pilots. It really made a lot of pilots, arrogant about like, oh, I'm a pilot, and so um, it really was an interesting time, and that lasted for about 5 7 years, and then the hiring kind of slowed down. But then the pandemic happened, and pilots got picked up real quick again, and now we're at where we're at today. You commercial pilot, you get your flight instructor certificate. You've been flight instructing for a while. You finally hit that 1,500 hours. Start applying to companies, and yet nobody's calling you in for an interview. And you're like, what do I have to do? You're looking for all these different low time pilot jobs, which, by the way, I do have. If you go to my website or if you subscribe, I've got a whole playlist of low time pilot jobs out there. But even with those low time pilot jobs, I mean, they're getting inundated with thousands of applications for just, one or two spots. And so by paying for your own ATP CTP course, taking the knowledge test, and then getting a type rating that you pay for, I mean, you are really going to stand out. Now, I know a lot of y'all are going to be against paying for your own type rating, but let me put it to you this way. So, if I'm an airline hiring manager and I'm looking at a ton of applications, everybody, let's just say you're already the cream of the crop. You got a bachelor's in flying, uh, in aviation. You've got your 1,500 hours or your restricted ATP 1,000 hours because you got the bachelor's. You're a flight instructor, a CFI, MEI, and then but I see the same person that also already has their ATP and a type rating in the kind of aircraft that we fly, like a 737, or just even something bigger. Let's say you're applying to a regional airline that flies ERJs, and you have a 737 type rating. It's not that they see like, oh, 737 type rating, we don't fly that, we don't care. No, that's not it. What they see is that you're able to go through initial training for a jet, which I've gone through. It is intense. It's like drinking water from a fire hose for your first jet. And so to see that you've gone through initial training for a type rating and you passed, that gives them a lot of confidence that they're going to invest that time and money into you for you to go through training and pass. Because let's say you go through initial training and you don't pass, well, it costs them a lot of money. One, it costs you a lot of money or it costs that airline a lot of money to train you for you to fail. And then they don't have a pilot that they can use. So then they have to spend more money trying to recruit another pilot, send them through training, and hopefully they pass. And so it costs a lot of time and money for the airline. So if they can see that, hey, this person's already got a type rating, then good, that's like, hey, I want this person. And so it will really help you stand out. Now, like I said, I know I'm gonna get some comments, which, please feel free to write a comment. But I know I'm gonna get some comments that say, oh, this is, nonsense. Don't pay for your own type rating. That's true. That's a very good point. But if you're one of the few that are willing to do so, I mean, you're gonna be at the top of that pile of applications for those few jobs that do exist. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you some companies. So the first one I want to show you is ATP Jets. Now, ATP Flight School. I know that there's a lot of opinions on ATP, and I'm not. I've never worked for them. I was never a student, so I'm not going to get into that. But but ATP, not only do they do regular flight training, but they do have some level D sims in which you can get the ATP-CTP course, and you can get a type rating in the Airbus A320. And so here's their website, and it shows here that the ATP-CTP course over the course of 7 days costs $4,495. And then you can combine that to then also get your Airbus A320 type rating over the course of 11 days for only $10,850. Now I know you spent a lot of money on your flight training, and this is a little bit more. But I mean, if you're able and you're willing, I mean, this is going to help you stand out. Now you might be wondering, $10,850. You would think an Airbus A320 that would be pretty expensive. I mean, in terms of other type ratings, this is actually a fairly, inexpensive type rating. It's because there's so many people that want to get the A320, the Boeing 737 type ratings, versus like a Gulfstream. I used to work for a company called CAE. It's a big corporate jet training facility. And I mean, I remember when I got my Citation XLS type rating that I didn't pay for, but because it was a good time for pilots like me. But I mean, back then, just the Citation XLS or the Citation XL was 25,000. I think the Gulfstream 550 was like $70,000, and so when you move up into these bigger jets like the Airbus A320, the Boeing 737, I mean 10,850, that's kind of the going rate for those type ratings. So, it's actually affordable type rating. And so 11 days for the type rating. And the nice thing is that if you meet the ATP requirements, meaning that you've taken the ATP-CTP course, you've taken and passed the knowledge test, then and you've got the flight hours for it, well, then when you go through this type rating course, you can go ahead and tack on the ATP check ride with your type rating check ride, and it's just all one check ride. It and it really doesn't make the check ride any harder. When I worked at CAE, I was a right seater. Basically, clients would send their pilot. Sometimes they only had one pilot, so I'd sit in the right seat. And so I sat in on so many check rides, some of them ATP check rides, and they were the exact same check ride. So if you can pass a type rating check ride, you can pass the ATP check ride. So might as well do it together, get your ATP and a type rating to help yourself stand out. The next one I want to tell you is Aerostar, and there's lots of companies that provide type ratings. I just found these three companies that happen to have their pricing on their website, so I figured that's the one y'all would want to see. So, but there are others out there that all you have to do is just call them, and they'll tell you how much they charge. And so Aerostar, if you go down, you'll see here, they're another company. You can get your A320 type rating. You can also get their ATP-CTP course. So their ATP-CTP course, over the course of 6 to 7 days, it's going to cost about 3,650. If you bring another partner with you, it's $3,450. But if you just happen to know someone that wants to do exactly what you're doing at the same time, yeah, definitely take advantage of that deal. But otherwise, plan on spending $3,650 for your ATP CTP course, and then your type rating course. Now they have the premium type rating course. That's where you're going to be in ground school, 4 days of ground, 40 hours. This is going to take approximately 3 to 3.5 weeks, and it's going to cost you $12,900. But then they have their fast track type rating, which is going to be you're probably going to be doing all your ground instruction like virtually, probably with an iPad, CBT lessons, and so you're pretty much there only for the simulator sessions. And so this one costs $9,900. I don't want to say you should do the fast track versus the premium type rating program that they have. Yeah, I mean, ground school's intense. And so if you're better like in person in the classroom, then I would do that, what they call the premium type rating course. But if you're good at studying from CBT courses, reading a lot, then I would do the fast track option of $9,900. But that really just depends on you. So, and then the last one I want to tell you about is International Aviation Training Services. So this one, you don't they have more than just the A320. So if you want to get the 737, this would be a good option for you. And so, they have their ATP CTP course, which is $3,500, or you can do ATP CTP plus a type rating package in either the A320, the A330, the Boeing 737 NG, the Boeing 777, or the Boeing 747-400 for only $10,200. So this is a pretty good deal. Now, if you're thinking, well, why is it cheaper than the other options I just talked about? You know what? It's their way to compete against those other companies because there's so many companies that offer, type ratings. Now, would they be in business if there weren't people going through and, succeeding? No. So, if I want to get a type rating, I would seriously consider this company. Now, no, so that's promotional pricing valid through June of 2026. So, but I always like to fall back to that saying, if there's a deal today, there's a deal tomorrow. So at the end of June 2026, I'm guessing there'll be another one, another deal going for July of 2026, and so on. So, now I do want to say, if you're gonna pay for your own ATP CTP course and your own type rating, I would probably recommend going with the Airbus A320 or the Boeing 737 type ratings. Just because there's a lot of companies out there that have those aircraft. So I know when you go to apply for the regional airline that you're not going to be flying, A320 or 737. But, after that, you're going to apply to United, Delta, American. They do have a lot of A320s, 737s that you're probably going to start out on. So that's a really good, type rating to have. The Boeing 777, Boeing 747, there are some cargo companies that will actually hire you at like 1,500 hours, like I think like Atlas Air, for example, they fly 747s and I believe 777s. So if you wanted to go there, then yeah, I probably would go with the 747 or the 777 based on which aircraft you want to fly. I know Eastern Airlines, based out of Kansas City, they're another company. I believe I don't know what hours they hire pilots at, but if you showed up with the type rating already, I'm sure that would really pique their interest. So you know, I know the idea of paying for your own type rating, it's gonna irk some of y'all in a not so nice way. And yeah, hey, if you made it this far, please tell me what you think in the comments. I know it's not gonna make a lot of y'all happy, but for some of you, if you're willing to do this, I mean, you're really gonna set yourself apart. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe.